Looking for a new career? Welcome to Do HVAC Training Service Center in North Charleston. Enroll today in our comprehensive HVAC training hands-on field experience-based program, covering troubleshooting, maintenance, installation, and more on various HVAC systems and ductwork. We offer EPA and NATE preparation and testing, along with various certifications. Enjoy payment options. Achieve certification in under 5 months. Enroll now for your new journey of skill development and career advancement. Log on to dewhvactrainingsc.com to inquire.
Get the home field advantage every time with Fairfield by Marriott, official hotel partner of the NCAA. Whether you're a student athlete working toward your championship dreams or your team's biggest fan, Fairfield by Marriott has everything you need to get ready for game day. From comfortable guest rooms to complimentary hot breakfast, Fairfield is part of the Marriott Bonvoy portfolio of hotels and official hotel partner of the NCAA. Visit fairfield.marriott.com to book your next game day stay.
Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and even earn money, all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free with no catch. Ever since we discovered Spotify for Podcasters, we feel like having options like video podcasts and Q&A lets us be more creative on another level. I highly recommend you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started.
Twitter. Welcome to On the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. We're back this week on the heels of last week, where it started out a little bit slow for us in terms of prospects and young players, but then got very busy over the weekend, highlighted by the debut of Keegan Akin against the Nationals. But there are also some other stories to get to this week, including the injury to Austin Hayes, the return of Dillon Tate, and the emergence of a player who's actually not a prospect anymore, but still a young player as the Orioles try to rebuild, that's been watched closely, reliever Tanner Scott, who continues an impressive start to the year. We're going to get to all of that in this week's show, but first we're going to start with Keegan Akin, the first member of the Orioles to make his Major League debut this year. It came on Friday against the Nationals, in relief of Tommy Milone, who struggled against the team that originally drafted him. Akin came in, pitched 3+ innings. The first 2 innings were effective. He gave up a solo home run in his third inning of work to Asdrubal Cabrera, and then hit a wall there in the 4th inning that he attempted to pitch. Cody Carroll came in relief of him and allowed 2 inherited runners to score. So ultimately, the final line for Akin in his debut: 3 innings pitched, 2 hits, 3 runs, 3 earned, 1 walk, 1 strikeout, and 1 home run. Working mainly off the fastball and slider, with a couple of changeups mixed in. As we had seen with Akin in his minor league career, fastball was generally riding in that 91 to 93 range. So there's a lot from that outing to dissect. I'll start with you, Nick. What were your impressions of Akin in his debut?
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think watching Akin come out, finally take that mound in an Orioles uniform in a regular season game, only to have him sent back down, was like, being a kid and knowing on Friday after school you're going to go get ice cream with your parents, and you get to the ice cream shop and that ice cream cone is in your hand, and then you drop it and it's gone, and now you're just sad because it's gone. And that's like Keegan Akin. We don't know when we're going to see him again now, and at this rate I don't know if we'll see him again this year. But I think overall, can Akin work on some things? Yeah, absolutely. We talked about numerous times, what role is he going to fit best in? Is it a starter? Is it a reliever? Is it a swing man? And I think, although you can't really have any major takeaways from his outing, I did like how he attacked the righties inside, and even though he missed a few times, he would go right back to that to try to get the out. The slider did look really good against lefties, got some swing and miss there. When you leave a 92-mile-an-hour fastball middle against a big league hitter, it's going to be put to the stands, which is what I think it was Asdrubal Cabrera that hit the home run off of him. That's going to happen, but that's what we've seen kind of with Keegan Akin all throughout his minor league career, is that when that commands off, It takes a little bit to get it back on. When it is off, he can have long nights. I think I've watched every single one of his starts for the last 2 years, and he looked like a really good. I think the making of a really good Keegan Akin last night. That command is something that's bothered him since his college days, and hopefully he works on that now that he's back in Bowie a little bit. But for his first outing, after sitting in the bullpen for pretty much the whole week, I thought he looked really good. I think this is the perfect opportunity with John Means, and John Means not probably pitching a whole lot this year. It's going to take a while to stretch him out. You're talking about 8 more starts for all these starting pitchers, and so I think piggybacking Akin off John Means and the Tommy Malones and Wade LeBlancs, I think that would be perfect at this opportunity. But we're not going to see that right now. But it was exciting to watch him pitch for the first time. So we'll see if he gets another shot.
First of all, that was a great analogy. Hopefully Mike Elias will take us back to the ice cream shop in a couple days, and we'll get our dessert back. But no, it was exciting to see Akin get in there. I think a lot of it was nerves. I think he talks about how he was he barely can remember what happened. He was so amped up. And I think part of making him sit in that bullpen and wait for his opportunity couldn't have helped. To me, if you're going to bring a guy up, get him into a game as quick as possible. Just get that first appearance out of the way so he can really settle in. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case because the Orioles keep winning. And I got to credit Hyde. He's going to his core guys while they have a chance to win. So it was unfortunate that it took him that long to get in there. But once he did, I thought he looked pretty good. Averaged 92 mile an hour on his fastball based off Baseball Savant. He got a lot of really good movement on that, so that's good to know. It's not just a straight fastball that people can center up. He was working mostly fastball, I want to say 65% of the time. Slider looked okay. Thought the changeup looked pretty decent. Would like to see him throw it a bit more, but it's only one outing, 3 innings. Hard to really take much out of it. Hopefully he goes back down to Bowie, continues to stretch his arm out, and he takes Wade LeBlanc's start in the rotation next time through.
Yeah, I certainly hope this is not the last of Akin for this season, because although, I think the end line, if you look at the final line, it does kind of look like a mixed result. And in that the inning where the Orioles tried to put him back out for what would have been his 4th inning had he been able to make it through, started out by hitting Carter Kieboom, gives us a double to Yan Gomes, and then is pulled from the game before Cody Carroll comes in and gives up both inherited runs. I liked what I saw from the velocity. He worked with the slider a little bit. As Bob said, I do want to see the changeup more, but again, the only way you're going to get that changeup experience, aside from whatever he does in Bowie, is to bring him back up to the major leagues at some point and find a role for him. I really think that if the Orioles, and we don't, whether or not they're going to sustain the success for the rest of the summer is a separate topic, but I think what's clear, regardless of how you view that, the Orioles, those first 5 innings are going to be a challenge. They haven't quite found their 5-man rotation yet, and I think that what they need to look at doing is either putting Akin in the piggyback situation where he can come out of the bullpen, start with a clean inning as he did on Friday night, hopefully work 3 or 4 innings an outing. Get to that point where you can stretch him out a little bit, that next year the idea of putting him on the mound and having him go at least 5 innings every start isn't that far-fetched. Or you put him as a starter and then you have LeBlanc or Malone follow him. Because I think the Orioles are going to find themselves in that really for the rest of the year trying to figure out how do we get through the first 5-6 innings of each game without overtaxing a bullpen that has performed really well to this point. You don't want to see a guy like a Tanner Scott or someone else start struggling because they're working too many innings. So I hope we've not seen the last of Akin, but I think the Orioles have to figure out if they're going to bring him back up, how they're going to use him.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just like the Ryan Mountcastle discussions we've had, I trust what they're doing down in Bowie is going to make all these players better, but, Keegan Akin's one of those guys that, how much more development is left there with Keegan Akin. It seems that he's at the point where it's kind of sink or swim right now. And he, like we said, he did pretty well at his first outing. With John Means, Tommy Malone, Wade LeBlanc, even Wojciechowski, I know he seems like a guy who, if he could go 8 innings, he's going to want to, but I don't think he has that stuff. He's not going to be able to do that for you. So there's going to be a lot of innings, and this would be a great opportunity, I feel like, to have Keegan Akin up there pitching. And like you said, Zach, if you want to start him and then have LeBlanc Malone or somebody else come after him, that's fine, or move Keegan Akin behind him. Even if you want to keep getting Akin that clean inning, I agree. I like that. But also, if you want to bring him behind John Means when John Means hits his wall in the fourth inning because he's still being stretched out, and suddenly you've got 2 runners on base and 1 out, bring in Keegan Akin and see what he can do. And see maybe next year, all right, that slider really works against lefties. That changeup is coming along. So maybe you got something there as a long reliever. I also don't think that, that doesn't mean Akin's a failed pitching prospect. I think that's still like a stigma that's around, like Hunter Harvey. These guys, just because you started your whole career and now we're moving you to the bullpen, it doesn't mean you failed as a pitching prospect. We just found where you can excel, and that could be where Akin excels. I don't know.
Yeah, and he's 25 years old right now. You're going to have him through his age 31, 32 season. I don't really see the point in playing too many games with a guy like him. In a perfect world, I'd like to see them bring Akin and Dean Kramer up at the same time and alternate every 5th day. One of them starts, the other one comes in, maybe 3 or 4 innings each. Just set up a tag team between 2 prospects. Would give us something to get excited about, give them good experience, and I think they'd give us a better chance to win games than a guy like Wade LeBlanc starting every 5th game.
Yeah, I think the Orioles at some point need to look at where they can fit Akin and Kramer into their selection of pitchers, whether it's out of the bullpen or in the rotation, because even if this team does continue to win, they're just going to have to find a way to really get the most out of their pitchers, because we saw this last week. Brandon Hyde did a really good job managing his way through that series in Philadelphia, but it got to be a point in the numbers game with the pitching staff. You're having a lot of high-scoring games. You have an extra innings game in there, and then you come back. You essentially play with the suspended game that started on Friday, that was resumed on Friday, essentially 3.5 games in 4 days to end the week. And overall, I thought Brandon Hyde did a good job getting through that, but it's going to show you that you're going to see probably more of that this year because you have to fit so many games into a tight schedule. You're going to have a numbers game with your pitching staff time and time again, and I think you have to figure out how do you fit Akin and then Kramer at some point into those roles where you can count on them if you need someone to make a spot start, if you need someone to come up and stay in the bullpen, or you need someone to stay in the rotation for a while.
Yep, good points.
Yeah, so Akin, when we updated our top 30 prospects list in July, ranked 14th. He had ranked higher on the list, but then moved down to account for the Orioles' 2020 draft class. Dean Kramer ranked 9th on that list. He is currently working out in Bowie, has yet to make his debut, but hopefully we'll see that later this year. Moving on now, Austin Hayes, who ranked 7th on that list that was published in July, was placed on the DL on Saturday with a fractured rib. So non-displaced rib fracture was a listed injury. Most reports suggest that it's not believed to be too serious and that he should spend the minimum amount of time on the DL before being reactivated. The Orioles brought Cedric Mullins up from Bowie to take Hayes' spot on the roster, and he and Andrew Velasquez figure to split time in center field until Hayes returns. So, Bob, I'm going to start this off with you. What was your impression of Hayes before the injury, and are you concerned, because this is a prospect that has an extensive injury history, that this could lead to more trouble or that he could be out a while?
Honestly, I'm not that concerned right now. It came from getting hit by a pitch right in the ribs. Hard to avoid that. It's not like he did anything wrong to cause that. But I do believe that he might be back when the 10 days is up, because he played, 3 or 4 games after he got hit, and it happened. He re-aggravated it, I think, trying to make a play in the outfield. I think it might be a silver lining to this, where if it's not too serious and he just really needs a rest for a week or so, and then he can come back, maybe it can really give him a fresh start on the season. He must be frustrated getting off to the start the way he has. Like we talked about before, he had some bad luck in the first week or so of the season. Then he seemed to start pressing, have not as much success as he would like. I was hoping that inside the park home run would really ignite something, and he did have a couple decent games after that. But maybe some time off will let him just relax, reset his brain, and come back on a mission to prove the prospect that he is.
Yeah, that's my exact same line of thinking there. I think that was just an unfortunate injury. A lot of the injuries we've seen from him are just because he goes so hard on every single play, and so he's got those battle wounds in his past. But there's nothing you can do about it. He got hit in the ribs with a pitch. Playing hard continued to aggravate it. Now it seems like you said, he seems like he's going to be back soon. And I think if it's a week, if it's 2 weeks, I don't know if they were able to backdate the injury. I didn't look on that before we got on, but if he's back in a week or two, then you can use that week or two to just hit the reset button. Put in the classroom work, I think, right now. Go ahead, look at the video, study what's going wrong, study the pitchers you got coming up, use this as an opportunity to just reset and come out in the second half of the season strong. When he comes back, you're probably going to have about 30 games or so left. The season's only got 5 or 6 weeks left. If he can come back in those last 30 games and finish strong, then I think 2020 is a success, in my opinion, for Austin Hayes. Mostly just because I personally wasn't sold on the idea of him being the everyday center fielder for the Orioles. But I think his play this year defensively changed my mind. So if he can come back healthy, finish strong, it doesn't have to be those September numbers from last year, but if he can show improvements at the plate over these last 30 games, keep playing a hard defense, then call it a success, move on. 2020 is just, it's a year. I don't know what else to say about 2020. So, I'm not worried about him at all, though. Not yet.
Yeah, I want to see him make some strides at the plate when he gets back. It seemed like when you would watch Hayes on a game-to-game basis, you would see one game where he, looked lost at the plate, swinging in too many pitches, chasing too many pitches out of the zone. Then the next night, he would be making hard contact, and sometimes would just encounter bad luck. But, Nick, you brought up an interesting point, which is that Hayes does really play an aggressive style of baseball. And that goes to the way he plays center field. You see him diving after balls, jumping into the wall, and his approach to the plate, frankly, is aggressive. Do you think the Orioles need to kind of channel that aggression a little bit?
I'm going to say no. Since he's so young right now, I just feel like that might hurt him. Maybe in the long run. I think defensively, yes. I think that was kind of the knock on Hayes coming up. When he was coming up through the minor leagues in Bowie, you saw minor league teams really shift on him, and he wasn't able to beat that shift because he was a pull heavy hitter. He really didn't send the ball the opposite way. So maybe, again, like I said, using this as classroom time while he's injured. And this, I think the idea of this being spring training 3.0 for the Orioles is out the window now that we're fighting for a playoff spot. But he's still got some time to sit there and study a little bit now, and then maybe use that opportunity to kind of ease back into this and start saying, all right, maybe we should rein this in just a little bit at the plate. Keep going hard on the field, but maybe at the plate, let's try to switch some things up. And hopefully that happens.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't really have much to add.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was happy to see the Orioles go ahead and make the move to drop him lower in the order. Not because I necessarily believe that's where Hayes is ultimately, destined to be a 6 through 9 hitter somewhere in that range, but I just thought that putting him in the leadoff spot might be too much too soon. And the first, in his initial games in the leadoff spot, it kind of seemed that way. I think with Handra Alberto at the top of the order, it's working a little bit better for the Orioles. So when Hayes does come back, I would be fine if the Orioles want to leave him as the number 7 hitter for the rest of the year and focus on the areas he needs to develop, really his pitch recognition, not chase as many balls out of the strike zone, and try to make more hard contact, which he shows he can do at times. When he gets a hold of a pitch in the zone, he can make hard contact, but if he's chasing too many pitches out of the strike zone, we're not going to see enough of that.
Yeah, and he just missed crushing a home run in Philadelphia that was, maybe it should have been a home run, right? They called it foul. So, yeah.
So moving on from Hayes, we did have another transaction took place earlier today. We're recording this show on Monday evening, by the way. Dillon Tate was activated from the 10-day injured list, with Evan Phillips sent to the Orioles' alternate training site. Tate has been injured for a few weeks now, did not start the season on what was initially a 30-man roster. But coming into 2020, Tate looked like a player the Orioles were going to turn to out of their bullpen. A former first-round pick who has had his ups and downs over the course of his career, but at times flashes potential in that relief role, and someone that I know the three of us had kind of been on the lookout for to see if he could maybe thrive in the middle to late inning relief spot this season. Nick, with Tate back, what are you expecting from him as he starts pitching again after recovering from the injury, and what do you think his role in the bullpen is going to be?
Yeah, I hope it's that middle relief role, kind of using him in low leverage situations right now, just getting him some innings, letting him ease back into this. He's another one of those guys who hasn't really had a lot of ramp up time. It's been a long time since Dillon Tate's been in a meaningful game, and I know overall the numbers aren't from last year. His first season with the Orioles weren't that great, but I mean, when you really look into it, and I've talked about this before, I've written about this before on BaltimoreSportsAndLife.com. His 8 of his 16 outings last year were scoreless outings of at least one inning. I like that number. I like to see that. He did have a few when he got roughed up. He did get roughed up, but again, half of your outings are scoreless outings. I really like that. Your xFIP was nearly 2 runs lower than his ERA. Ground ball rate of almost 60%. He was just converted to a reliever after he was injured in 2019 when he was with Bowie. So he didn't really have a lot of time. They moved him pretty quickly up through Norfolk and into the big leagues. I also wrote about his changeup a couple weeks ago. I really like that pitch. He used it 20% of the time. Didn't allow a single base hit off of it last year. High whiff rate on the pitch. So he's got bright spots. I like his stuff. I think it's going to take him some time, and I just hope that when he does get into game action, and if he gets roughed up a bit, I hope people don't turn on him instantly, because I know with the Cody Carroll and that instance and this whole trying to get value out of that Zach Britton trade seems to be kind of dead among a lot of Orioles fans. But I still think that we can hang our hats on Dillon Tate just a little bit. Dillon Tate will never be Zach Britton, I don't think, but he's got some tools that we can watch, and hopefully he settles in pretty quickly and gets a few outings this year.
Yeah, I agree. Middle relief is where it should be. Like Nick said, give him some low leverage stuff, let him get some confidence. It will be interesting to see how he prepared coming into the season knowing he's going to be a reliever. I wonder if he's done anything to make an adjustment in that way. But no matter how well he does, I'd rather watch Dillon Tate go out there and struggle than watch Evan Phillips throw a scoreless inning where he gave up a hit, 4 walks, and a hit batter. And yeah, Phillips, he got sent down. I know he had like some of the best slider movement of anyone in the major leagues this year, but clearly wasn't really doing him all that well. So yeah, Dillon Tate, it's not as exciting as having Keegan Akin come up or Hunter Harvey come off the disabled list, but it'll be nice to have a fresh young face out there in the bullpen.
Yeah, I know Harvey is a reliever that Orioles fans are really waiting for to come back, and I think the expectation is there that when Harvey does return, he stands a chance to make that bullpen even better than it is. But I'm intrigued by what we could see from Tate. As Nick said, the numbers overall, when you look at them across the board during his major league time last year, 21 innings to a 6.43 ERA, 5.17 FIP. He did strike out 20 batters in 21 innings, allowed 9 walks in there, so again, a mixed bag. But this is a former first-round pick who, during his time as a reliever in the minor leagues, has flashed some potential. So I'm hoping that the Orioles are going to be patient with him. Give him some opportunities to get out there, as both of you said, in low-leverage situations, and see what he can do. And hopefully, by going an inning or two at a time with him, the Orioles don't find themselves in a situation, Tate got stretched out too much doing mop-out duty, so now he has to go back down to Bowie for a few days so that we can get a fresh arm up. Hopefully Tate is given a fair chance this year and isn't on that shuffle too much between Bowie and Baltimore.
Yeah, let him stay in the bullpen. Get his licks in. If he gets beat up a little bit, so what? I mean, there's a lot of guys in the bullpen that I think should be sent down before a prospect like him.
Yeah, I was looking up Evan Phillips real quick because I don't really have any opinion about Evan Phillips, honestly. But that trade with the Atlanta Braves that he came over in is looking like quite another one of these quite a deals. Evan Phillips came over with Brett Cumberland, catching prospect, who I don't think anyone believes he's going to be a catcher moving forward if he makes it past Bowie. JC Encarnacion and Bruce Zimmerman for Kevin Gossman and Darren O'Day. And Darren O'Day is, of course, pitching phenomenally for the Atlanta Braves, the bullpen. And Kevin Gossman is throwing 99.99 on the paint for the Giants. So there we go. Save us, Bruce Zimmerman.
Yeah, Bruce Zimmerman might be the next John Means, so let's not give up hope yet.
Yeah, that could be a whole separate show. Jake Arrieta, Dylan Bundy, and Kevin Gossman broken down.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that to ourselves yet, though. We'll wait till like October and November. We're really content starved. We'll just bring out all of the misery from past Orioles trades.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
You know, recap the Glenn Davis deal for everyone that can't get enough of that one. So, on a lighter note than Glenn Davis, the Orioles 3 up, 3 down, written by our own Bob Phelan, is up on Baltimore Sports and Life, was posted earlier today. Bob does this article weekly, definitely worth checking out. So stay tuned to BaltimoreSportsAndLife.com every Monday to see that story from Bob. Hop on a discussion board to weigh in with your thoughts. His 3 up this week are Anthony Santander, Pedro Severino, and Tanner Scott. The 3 down are Pat Valakia, Wade LeBlanc, and Miguel Castro. So we're going to focus on Tanner Scott for this go-around, who continues his really promising 2020 season. So, Bob, tell us what you wrote about Scott this week and how you feel about how he's pitched so far this year.
Yeah, I actually also talked about Tanner Scott on the Locked On Orioles podcast today as well. So it's Tanner Scott all day long. I think Nick actually tweeted out how he improved his spin rate by like 300 RPMs from last year, and that seems to be, I think, a big part of his improvement this year because his ground ball rate is just ridiculous. I think it's 92.3%. That's insane. We said how, I can't remember who it was earlier on, Akin's not going to be the next Zach Britton, but maybe Tanner Scott could be if he's going to get ground balls at that rate. But the key to him is being able to throw his slider, I feel like, in any count, and not be scared that he's going to walk a million batters. Because it seems like in the past he's always had the stuff, but he seems to get in his own head, especially in pressure-filled situations where he would start to nibble and start to aim. I think this year he's shown confidence in his fastball and his slider that he can just throw him. If he walks a guy, that's fine. We'll go get the next one. It just seemed like he has more confidence, and it's showing, and I just hope he doesn't fall off a cliff.
Yeah, R.I.P. Miguel Castro. I'm not off the train yet, but Jesus. Yeah, I think just overall with the 3 up, 3 down piece, and Pedro Severino, can you just take a moment to look at the Fangraphs WAR leaderboard among Major League Baseball catchers, and it is JT Realmuto, Pedro Severino, James McCann, and Chance Sisco. That's amazing. But with Tanner Scott, 8 innings pitched, 11 strikeouts, only 1 earned run, 2 hits. The slider's got a 50% whiff rate. Bob mentioned the extreme ground ball rate, and obviously these are all very small sample sizes, but still. The fastball whiff rate's up from like 18% to about 25% now. His whip right now is 0.75. And, one bad outing could send that up to 2.0, but he was a 1.79 whip last season and 1.57 the season before that. So to see Scott pitch like this is pretty awesome. Numbers aside, he does look a lot more confident on the mound. Like he's going up there and he's attacking guys head on with that slider. He's definitely not afraid. I think something interesting though that I saw earlier in a Rockabacco article, though, he had a little line in there, just a quick jab, where he mentioned that other teams are taking notice. And when you got bullpens falling apart across Major League Baseball, look at what we did to the Phillies bullpen. That's a whole nother story, the Phillies bullpen. But the Phillies aren't the only one. You got a lot of teams who are supposed to make deep playoff runs where their bullpens are a disaster right now. And could Tanner Scott be a guy that the Orioles ship off? When I read that, I was kind of like, oh, I hate to see that, but at the same time, like, no one on this roster is untouchable. And so I want to see Scott find a home in this Orioles bullpen. It's been a lot of fun watching him pitch like this, finally click. But I'm not going to be mad at somebody trading a reliever if you can get a good return for him. So I think that's something to keep our eye on.
It's certainly interesting, and Michael Givens is pitching pretty good too, so maybe people want to pick from our bullpen coming up in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, certainly teams are going to be needing a lot of depth in their bullpen, and Nick just mentioned one of the big ones, the Phillies, who as the Orioles exposed last week and of other teams that have exposed before them, their bullpen kind of dragging them down a little bit. But going back to Tanner Scott, I agree with what Nick said. The mound presence this year for me has been a big difference from what I've seen in years past. He's working a lot better with the slider now. He's attacking the zone better, and he's doing well against lefties and righties. Yeah, it's not like you're looking at a guy that's going to be, heavy splits one way or the other. If that fastball and slider are working, you pretty much get anybody out. It doesn't matter what side of the plate they're coming from. So the mound presence is better. The control of his slider is much better, and the control of his fastball is a lot better. I don't have that fear anymore when Tanner Scott takes a mound that a 450 home run, a hit by pitch, or a walk is coming. Now it's like it's going to be a strikeout or a ground ball. It's night and day, and it's been really impressive to see.
It's literally only been a strikeout or a ground ball, I think, at this point, other than those two hits. But yeah, I love watching him finally just connect because Orioles fans have put a lot of tears into Tanner Scott over the years. We've invested a lot of time into him, and it's fun to watch guys like that finally make an impact. Not just it's fun to see like Pat Valaika had the walk-off hit and early success, although I think Pat Valaika is now coming back down to Pat Valaika numbers. But seeing the new guys, kind of these cast-offs find success is fun. But when you see like our guys, these homegrown guys finally find success like Scott is, that's what I think is making 2020 a little extra special.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah. I could see us trading him. I feel like it'd have to be a pretty decent haul, especially he's got a lot of control left. He's exciting. He's homegrown. I know Elias isn't nostalgic like me, but yeah, I remember thinking Tanner Scott is going to be our closer probably like 6 years ago. So it is nice to see him be successful. But he could go back to walking 3 batters an outing. Who knows? So fingers crossed.
Yeah, I just looked it up with Scott. He will be arbitration eligible for the first time after next season, will not be eligible for free agency until after the 2024 season. So the Orioles do have a lot of time left with club control. So I think unless you get a really good offer between now and August 31st, where it's the kind of offer you look at and think, wow, we're adding a lot to our farm system for one reliever, I think the Orioles ultimately are going to hold on to him for that reason, just because there is so much control left, and anything that he does in 2021 to build off of 2020 is only going to make his value even higher. And who knows, if the Orioles can somehow accelerate it, that by 2022, 2023, they're contending, then Tanner Scott is the next Zach Britton, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yep.
Although I will say, I think back to 2 years ago now, the San Diego Padres shipped off Brad Hand and Adam Simber and got Francisco Mejia, who was the top catching prospect in all of baseball at the time. He hasn't really panned out quite yet, but I mean, he's he could be the starting catcher for the future for the Padres. And not saying the Orioles are going to get a return like that, but if you catch a team like Cleveland who is desperate enough to send off one of their top prospects for relievers, it's going to be hard to turn that down. But I do hope he sticks around and finds that role as a dominant closer, or late inning guy at least.
Yeah, left-handed setup guy.
Yeah.
To Hunter Harvey. Why can I say his name tonight? That's insane. Harvey's closer.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought up the trade between the Indians and the Padres, Nick, because thinking back on that deal, that's always kind of been the model in my mind, that if the Orioles could find someone to pair Michael Givens with in a trade, that might be ideal for trading Givens, because it hasn't seemed like you've gotten to that point where Givens' performance and the market, Givens was, trending upwards in performance and the market was short. You haven't quite seen that yet. And I think that's part of the reason why he's still in Baltimore, is the Orioles haven't been really impressed with what they're getting in trade offers. I'm just speculating there, but that's my sense. So that would be something that if you were pairing a Tanner Scott with Michael Givens or even a Miguel Castro, although he would probably be in lower demand right now, but that would be one case where I think the Orioles would have to really consider trading Scott, is this one opportunity to pair him with another pitcher and get a lot in return.
Yeah. Let's pair Givens and Armstrong. Let's get somebody's top 10 prospect. I'm all for that.
Yeah, give us something else to talk about. Give us another reason to go through our prospect list and move things around again.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah,
we
had
need
to roll.
Mountcastle.
Yeah, that's
we're
right.
starting.
Ryan Mountcastle watch continues beyond this podcast. Mountcastle still not in the major leagues. I will admit that when Hayes went on the DL and I saw Cedric Mullins was coming up, my knee-jerk reaction was, where's Mountcastle? And then it very quickly dawned on me that if you brought up Ryan Mountcastle, you would be without a center fielder because there's no way that you're putting Ryan Mountcastle, Dwight Smith Jr., or Anthony Santander in center field.
Hey, didn't Santander get some time at center last year?
Yeah, true. I mean,
Why
I
not?
just love the way the bat's going in right field right now. So
yeah.
would
Yeah,
prefer to
he's
keep him over there.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, I am interested to see what Andrew Velasquez can do in center field. He's impressed me a little bit with his defense at short. Clearly his bat has been up to snuff, but he had a great game when he started his first time in center field. He's fast. Mullins is fast. I'd like to see how he does out there, given a little bit more everyday at-bats. We know Mullins can field the ball. Doesn't have the best arm, but still not impressed with his bat. Doesn't look like it's come back around, but we'll see.
Velasquez is, I think, going to be a pretty solid under-the-radar pickup for the Orioles here with these extra inning rule, and I like the way the Orioles are switching him in, bringing him in late in games. If it's a close game, you can match it up, so you can replace Velasquez in at the end of that game, and now all of a sudden he's the pinch runner, start second base in extra innings, and we've already seen the guy can practically steal home how fast he is. So I think he might win you 2 or 3 games down the stretch. Who knows?
Yeah, it kind of brings me back to the Orioles' last run of contention when they would steal like 12 bases in a year and still make the playoffs. But it always seemed like they had someone like a David Lowe around who could give you that extra base off the bench if he came in as a pinch runner late in the game. And I feel like if nothing else, Velasquez could be that guy for the Orioles this year.
Yeah, for sure.
So we'll be continuing to see what the Orioles do. Big series begins Monday night with the Orioles and the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays were a team that we were really high on coming into the season. They haven't quite gotten it going yet, but now they come in to face the Orioles, who continue to surprise everyone in the American League East. This is going to be an interesting test. And continue to follow us on Twitter at BSL on the Verge. Check in on Baltimore Sports and Life. We'll have new content on the Orioles, Ravens, and more. Be sure to hop on the discussion board. So before we sign off for the week, I'm going to start with you, Bob. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I guess I'll just plug my spot on Locked On Orioles podcast one more time. Had a pretty good discussion today. A little bit evergreen. We recapped the National Series, but we talked about how the Orioles defense kind of broke down finally this past weekend. We talked a little about Anthony Santander, what John Means coming back and his poor start on Sunday meant, and we got in a little more discussion on Tanner Scott. So thought it was a good discussion. When you're done subscribing to and listening to our podcasts, maybe give them a listen. And yeah,
definitely a good show. I think my final thought is I'm all in on the Shane Bieber, Dylan Bundy, Lance Lynn Cy Young Award race. I think everyone should tune into that. Bieber is absolutely disgusting and is must-watch TV. Unfortunately, Dylan Bundy has joined the black hole that is the Angels, that I don't think they've ever been on national TV, even with one of the greatest athletes to ever grace this earth on their roster, and Mike Trout. And, the Rangers are the Rangers. They're kind of whatever. But it's unfortunate that you got Dylan Bundy and Lance Lynn leading the way in the American League, and no one knows. So watch those guys. It's fun.
Orioles fans know.
Yeah,
yes, Orioles fans know. Dylan Bundy goes over the Angels and is having so far the best season of his career, but the Angels just can't quite seem to get it going yet, despite Bundy's success and despite the fact that Mike Trout is still Mike Trout, still having a really good year. So, but that will be something to watch, along with how the Orioles perform over the next few weeks here. We're in about mid-August now. The 60-game season, games starting to feel all the more important as we're now about a third of the way through the year. Hopefully over the coming weeks, we'll see the Orioles continue to make progress on the field, and we'll see some younger players, whether that's Ryan Mountcastle finally debuting, Austin Hayes returning from the injured list, and hopefully Keegan Akin reappearing at some point in the next few weeks. Stay tuned. So for Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this has been Zach Spedden. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back next week.
At Grainger, We're for the ones who specialize in saving the day and for the ones who've mastered the art of keeping business moving. We offer industrial-grade supplies for every industry with same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders, all backed by real people ready to help. So you can get the right answers and products right when you need them. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.